second meeting of December 21st, the 7 p.m. meeting, I made a mistake in the minutes. There's a significant omission. So if you could please either remove all the minutes or just that second meeting till next agenda, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, does everybody on council got that? When the time to approve the consent agenda? Is that what you're asking, Marnie? Okay. All right, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. It is 7 o'clock. It is Monday, January 11th. Welcome to the first council meeting of the year. Let's start with the Pledge of the Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember James.
Present in Ferndale, Michigan.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
Present in Ferndale, Michigan.
Councilmember Mikulski.
Present in Ferndale, Michigan.
Councilmember Polika.
Present in Ferndale, Michigan.
And Mayor Piana.
Present and in Ferndale, Michigan. Next is the approval of the agenda. And we have one slight change.
Yes, Your Honor, I would like to move that we accept the agenda with one addition that we add to presentations in the first slot. Our new county commissioner, Charlie Cavell, is with us. In fact, I think he's in the general attendee, so he needs to be moved into our panel. But I think he's here to give an update on things happening in the county.
Support.
I would also like to add an amendment to the agenda if I could. Yes. Would it be possible to move the accessibility inclusion in front of the audit instead of after the audit?
Joe, are you okay with that? Do we have any special guests here for that as well?
We do, but through the chair, that was discussed previously. That's appropriate.
Okay.
I'll support that amendment if it needs it.
And it also looks like our state rep is trying to get into the meeting as well, our new state rep, Regina Weiss. So can we also make some space for her and, after Charlie Cavell, because she's having trouble getting in?
I'd be happy with that amendment.
And could I ask before you finish with the motion to remove the council minutes of December 21st from the consent agenda table till next time?
Would you like me to remake the motion?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, I would like to make the following corrections to the agenda, adding in presentations 5A, Charlie Cavell, B, Regina Weiss, and move the current 5A regarding the fiscal statement presentation, financial statement presentation to the end of the presentations, and remove the 7A consent agenda of the meeting minutes for December 21st, 2020.
Moved, and who is seconding? Did I hear a second?
I'll support as restated.
Excellent. Okay. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
Present. Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski.
Yes.
Councilmember Polika.
Yes, in Ferndale.
Councilmember James.
Yes.
And Mayor Piana.
Yes. Next is electronic meeting procedures, and we are still in status quo. Our legislature has passed an update to the Open Meetings Act before Christmas, and they extended the electronics meetings for the pandemic through March 31st. We will watch that closely, as we always have, to make sure that we're complying. But for now, Zoom it is. And we will be reviewing the online participation component once we get to call to audience. So moving on to presentations, first up, and welcome to the first City Council meeting, our new County Commissioner, Charlie Goodell.
Madam Mayor, are there not amendments to the electronic procedure that need to be passed?
I'm going to ask Dan. Where's Dan Christ? Did something change over Christmas that we need to amend again? Dan is not here.
He's in the attendees. It looks like he needs to be promoted.
One moment, Charlie. Hang on. Stand by.
Thank you. Through the chair, there are some modifications to council's proposed electronic remote procedures. I would ask, Your Honor, to consider a motion to amend the rules of procedure consistent with the attached resolution.
Can you kind of review what's the difference between what we've been doing?
Yes, specifically at the end of December 31st, 2020, initially under Public Act 228, council could meet for electronic meetings for any reason. That has been extended by Public Act 254, which became effective on December 22nd of 2020. It allows for council to have electronic meetings, remote meetings for any reason through March 30th of 2021. After that point in time, there will be electronic meetings allowed only if a member of council is serving in the military or there is a diagnosed documented medical illness by a council member, and thirdly, if a state or local emergency is declared at that time. Those would be, after March 30th, those would be the only allowed reasons for somebody to participate remotely. Additionally, there's the additional requirement effective January 1st, which requires any public body member who's participating remotely to identify the location where they're actually participating, which is why council members now identified participating in Ferndale, Michigan. So those are the principal requirements, amendments that became effective on December 22nd.
Thank you, Dan. So we need a motion to pass the resolution.
I move to adopt the resolution to amend rules for electronic meetings as submitted by the city attorney.
Support.
Supported by James and, moved by James, supported by Mikulski. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May,
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski,
Yes.
Councilmember Polika,
Yes.
Councilmember James,
Yes.
and Mayor Piana.
Yes. Passes, and now we are moving on to presentations, and welcome again, County Commissioner Charlie Cavell. Thank you for being with us tonight in our first meeting of the year.
Thank you for having me. I appreciated the call earlier today, Mayor Piana, to invite me to come along. Glad to be on the team with y'all. So I thought I'd just take a moment to give everyone a quick update about the pressing social and economic crisis that we're facing, aka COVID. So if I could, I wanted to tell everyone joining in and listening, first, that what your government, your Oakland County government, is doing for you is we have vaccines and we are distributing them. There is a pause now because we have received 5,850 doses of vaccine. We have administered all those doses or have appointments set for all of those doses. But there are things that you can do. So I will give you all a phone number, website you can go to get e-blasts, and also text messages that you can sign up for. And also just to tell everyone watching that I'm communicating regularly with the mayor and council by sending at least weekly updates, and likely those will become updates every 2 or 3 days once, because this is such a moving target. Because mind you, we have 5,850 vaccines, but we have about 1.6 million doses that we need to give out to get 70% of Oakland County's 1.2 million people. So we're at the very beginning. We have yet to even see this wave start to reach its crest. So thank you for your patience, and let's keep working together on this. So in that spirit, the phone numbers I can give you all, and mayor and council, would you like me to say them out or send them to the clerk, or what's the most convenient way to do this?
I would give the number now and then say it out loud, and then it will go into the meeting minutes as well.
Thank you. Individuals 65 and up who would like to make an appointment for the vaccine, it is recommended that phone number is 800-848-5. Numbers answered Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, Saturday, 9 to noon. 848. And again, it is a real nurse that is earlier today and talked to Lakeisha. It took about 5 minutes, I'm told, for me to get there. Literally tens of people calling. But that is the recommended first thing you do, is call that number to then get all the information you need, have a real live nurse answer any question you might have. You do is, in the meantime, while we're waiting for the next round of shipments for the vaccine from the state of Michigan, wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart, and wear a mask. And then third, the way you can keep up online, there's a website that's oaklandcountyvaccine.com. It's oaklandcountyvaccine.com. That's where you can get e-blasts. You can sign up to see when more vaccine is delivered to the next 70-degree refrigeration unit that the county has at all its public health disbursement sites, and when you up to then get an appointment, the first of your 2 shots for the vaccine. And then also the third way you can reach out is to receive text messages by texting 28748 saying OakGov in the message. So text the word OakGov to 28748. And also, if all that was too much or you weren't writing down, 248-807-4347. Again, that's 248-807-4347. And that's the latest on COVID. There's plenty of other things about racial, social, and economic justice that the county is just getting started on for this term, but most pressing is that. Thanks for the time, and happy to repeat anything if need be.
Thank you. No, we're just glad you're here and giving us, we are getting lots of questions from staff. So thank you.
If I may, through the chair.
Sure.
Commissioner Cavell, so the vaccines, the appointments that are being made, appointments will continue to be made even though the vaccines are not ready. They'll just continue making the appointments and then calling people as they come in.
So what I've been told as of about noon today, because again, everybody listening in and Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May, this is a very fast moving target, right? We're 800 into 1.6 million. What I was told at noon was by the nurse I spoke with that you call that number, the 800 number for Nurse on Call, get an update for that day of whether they're going to be scheduling appointments, because the state is getting shipments from the Pfizer location in Kalamazoo and a bunch of other Pfizer locations from wherever, trying to source it in. So the instant they get it, they push it out. So no appointments are being made now, but again, text updates, email updates, and call that number to get daily intel on when you can get an appointment.
Thank you. Clarification. Thank you for being here. We look. And moving on, the second presentation is our new state. Welcome you to our meeting. It's great to see you and here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for making some time for me, Mayor Piana, and the rest of council. Thank you to Commissioner Cavell important information, and I know he sent that out to several of our local leaders earlier today too, and it's good to have that information to share with folks as they ask. I'm very excited to be representing, newly representing as of this week, the 27th House District, which obviously includes Ferndale, also the communities of Berkeley, Oak Park, Royal Oak Township, Pleasant Ridge, Hazel Park. And opening day is going to be this Wednesday, and so getting ready to get to work, getting the office set up, doing all of those things. And one thing I just wanted to say really fast, I don't have too many updates to give right now because I'm just getting started, but I know one of the biggest concerns that I've heard from constituents now, and so if someone listening is having issues with unemployment claims and have not already reached out, I'd encourage them to reach out to our office. The easiest way to do that is to email us. So the email, again, I'll fill out in the as well, but you can email Michelle Weiss, REWEIS at house.gov. And if you could include in your email your name, your address, your phone number, and your name number, if you have it, that'll help us get that information moving along. From our office, we'll contact you as soon as possible to help with that and hopefully help expedite the process for you. Unfortunately, a lot of claims have been backed up, and we're trying to help as many people as we can to get that process moved up quickly for them. You can also, if you're not able to email our office, you can also call. The number is 1-373-78, and again, just information on the voicemail. We don't have because of COVID, everyone is working remotely. My staff is working remotely, so when you call, you'll leave a message, but somebody will follow up with you very quickly. And if you have any other concerns, you can also call or email regarding any issue, and you can also email me directly. My direct email is a little bit different. It's rweiss at house.mi.gov if you have any concerns or questions. And I'm really excited to get to work. And I just want to encourage everyone to save a quick date, which is going to be Friday, January 29th from 11 to noon. I'm going to have my first community conversation. It'll be via Zoom with Senator Jeremy Moss. And so I will be sharing more information with that out on social media and our all of that information coming out down the line, but I just wanted to get that out there now so that people can put that date in their calendar. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions from council? We're just excited that you're there and that you're getting, you're just starting to get acclimated, and we look forward to having you come to our council meetings to give us periodic updates. And thank you for being here again.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last thing, just again, if anyone on council or anyone who's listening ever has any concerns, please reach out. I'd be happy to help.
Thank you. All right, we are moving on to the next agenda item, which is 5C, which is the Ferndale Accessibility and Inclusion Advisory Commission Business Awards presentation.
Just a moment, Mayor, I need to promote the appropriate people.
But while that's happening, I'd love to kind of introduce. So this past December, the Ferndale Accessibility and Inclusion Commission decided to give businesses the opportunity to be recognized as businesses that are ADA accessible. I have 3 of the members who will be presenting tonight. I have Rachel Zabek. I have Alan Hale, who's the chair of the Ferndale Accessibility and Inclusion Commission, and we have Marciano Gongora, who will also be presenting.
Thanks for that intro, Raylon. So yeah, we're here tonight to kind of share our news. Our commission has now been together about a year since it was reformed, and what a year it's been. So we we really, when we first sat down last January to kind of ideate what this commission would be, one of the first things that came up was, rather than going through the arduous process of possibly punishing businesses for not being accessible, what we really wanted to do was inspire a culture in Ferndale around accessibility and including people with disabilities in our community being kind of woven into the fabric. So one of the first agenda items we had for 2020 was to launch an award, which glad to say we did. So let me share my screen. Can folks see this?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So our commission's mission is to make Ferndale a place of choice to both work and live for people with disabilities and help proactively to remove barriers to access wherever possible. One of the facts a lot of people don't know is that people with disabilities really do make up one of the largest minority groups. And around Metro Detroit, about 20% of our population identifies as having a disability according to the 2018 American Community Survey. So when we talk about inclusion, it's a really big impact that you make if you as a business take a stance that people with disabilities are a valid customer and you help promote including them. A little bit about our commission. We're the classic 7-person commission here. And as Raylon said, tonight presenting is myself, Alan Hale. We've got Marciano and Rachel with me as well. So more about the award. What we really want to do is we want to make sure this award, this isn't a check the box that says that my business is 100% accessible. And one of the things I think we want to make sure we differentiate from is when we think about accessibility, a lot of times people think about ADA access, which is really something that it's a building code word. Or it's a word around how people view services. But for people with disabilities, when they hear ADA access, it's kind of like nails on a chalkboard. It kind of signals that something might be the bare minimum that allows them to be included. So what we want to do is really make this award around encouraging an effort from a business that really impacts people. And we'll go into the categories of what those kinds of things are in a little bit. But what we really want to do is that this is showing that the business has worked on something, whether it's a training or something they've done or changed that tells people with disabilities that you matter here. And then one of the big things is we want this award as businesses slowly get them throughout Ferndale. We really want to inspire other businesses too. We want this window cling on every place in Ferndale if we can. And it really shows that everyone's kind of opening their doors. And the biggest thing is storytelling. So a lot of people, when they don't know if a place is accessible, it's hard to find kind of the stories and signals that would tell you that a place might be for you. So that's one of the things we want to encourage is the storytelling aspect of this. And then the other thing is we're not asking for a place to rebuild their entire restaurant, and we're not asking for a place to make significant improvements or install an elevator. Only 73% of disabilities are invisible. So when you think of some of the main categories of we'll go into them a little bit more later, but there's a lot of things you can do that are almost zero cost. And then just to touch on again, we really don't want to say that we're awarding for an ADA minimum. I think an example I give is if you have a ramp that goes into your back door and think that's accessible and think that might qualify for the award, unfortunately, that's just the legal minimum. And there's nothing that really shows that a box could be placed on the ramp or it could be used as a storage area that makes it inaccessible. So this is an effort-based initiative. A little bit about timing. So we did launch this award. We launched it on December 3rd of last year, which was the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. That's a UN-sponsored holiday, and it's a significant day for the disability community. So our nominations are open now, and that's part of why we're here tonight, is to really encourage how to find the link, how to nominate a business that you might know of that's done something, especially during coronavirus. There's a lot of changes coming to business. And what we really want to do is the businesses who are doing it right and are thinking about including more people, we want to make sure we're telling those stories to further amplify them. We will be closing the awards in mid-February. We're shooting for Friday, February 19th is when we'll close down our form. And then our commission will review those submissions. We hope to present any business that qualified for an award, find a date in March to present at council again to award them. And with that, I'll pass it off to Marciano.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alan, and thank you so much, everyone, for allowing us to be here tonight. My name is Marciano, and let's take you through the nomination form. So this form is totally inclusive, and it's actually hosted right within the Google system. So this link is up there, and our link can also be found directly on our Facebook page as well. Within the form, it has asked whoever's filling it out to get out some specific information and details related to the reason that you are nominating this business or organization. Also, we have the option for you to upload a photo of your improvement as well. And now specifically, for this award, we've had 6 categories. And within those 6 categories, I'll explain a little bit later on more in detail about them. But if you notice up here at the top of the form, you can access that link, which will have the full description and detail of those 6 categories. Move on to the next slide. Awesome. So within this form, there's obviously the 6 categories, and the first one is digital accessibility. So this one, I feel like it's best just to give examples, and then if you have the time and are interested, you can read in the description a little bit more. So these examples include closed captioning on videos and televisions, audio inputs for articles, and provide readable PDFs. Another category is an environmental accessibility. So this kind of looks at the area. So what is going on? Includes ramps? Is there accessible seating, appliances at sinks at different heights? Another example would be a bar if they had a lower bar for people who used a wheelchair. Cognitive accessibility is the third category. So this is kind of for to make sure that we include everyone and their sensory needs. So including a decibel meter, softer fabric textures and lighting, and elimination of flashing lights. And the fourth one, employment accessibility. So this kind of encompasses all of the hiring practices that a business takes and make sure that they have inclusive interview accommodations, accessible employment applications, and disability inclusive hiring teams. And now I'll pass it on to Rachel to continue on the categories.
Thank you so much, Marciano, and thank you all so much for having me here. The remaining categories, we've got 2 of them, as well as a sort of call for people to put other things on there that don't fit into any. So there is accessibility, training, and awareness. This is a category about including accessibility themes in employee training and making inclusion of patrons to the business or organization with disabilities part of the daily practices of the business or organization. So for example, it might include an initiative to include an employee training, like how do you interact with people who are clearly disabled without being condescending, without being overbearing? If somebody with a disability needs help, how do you deal with that situation without threatening that person's autonomy? And another example could potentially be if the location has equipment that is meant to be used to make certain things more accessible for people with certain physical or sensory barriers, teaching the staff how to actually use and implement that equipment and what situations that would be relevant for, so that they can actually assist the patrons who would need that. Communications accessibility. Thanks businesses and organizations who have made changes to their communication materials to make sure that everybody is included, that everyone can understand what's being communicated. So examples of this include things like printed flyers and room signs in Braille, announcements being both in audio and in text, essentially making sure that if information is being displayed somewhere, it can be understood by everybody, regardless of what disabilities they might have. And then finally, we welcome additional entries that don't fit cleanly into one of these categories because truly disability is a rainbow of different experiences, and we want to show understanding for that and honor that. So if businesses and organizations that are nominated or who are self-nominating feel like they've gone above and beyond, but it doesn't quite fit into one of these previous categories, we want to make sure that there's still a space for that. Next slide. Thank you. So we've got a series of frequently asked questions that I'd like to go over very briefly. Question 1, can I self-nominate? And the answer to that is yes. In fact, businesses and organizations that have implemented accessibility measures are probably have the best knowledge of those measures, of their own spaces, their own internal culture, better than anybody who might nominate them from the outside. So we want those positive sort of actors in our community to be able to nominate themselves. Can I persuade others to nominate my business? Yes. You can share with friends, family, anybody who's an outside actor who has their own insight into the situation. Can I nominate for every category? You can nominate for multiple categories to show that you are meeting multiple different categories of going above and beyond with regards to accessibility. However, we will not give you an award for each individual category that you're nominated for. It is one award per business or per organization. Can I ask employees if they have a disability? No. It's just not polite or legal, for that matter, to directly ask medical questions to employees. However, they can voluntarily self-identify. And 5, we had a person in a wheelchair come into our business once. Does that count? And we would say that, well, that's great, and that's a good indication that there might be some accessible measures in play that are letting disabled patrons enter the space. We are looking to recognize sustainable solutions. So things that are implemented that have staying power, that have impact. So an anecdote about a disabled person being at the location and using said location, whether that is a business, an organization, is not enough. We need a little bit more information about what has been implemented and how exactly the business or organization has gone above and beyond. The broader the potential to affect positive change in our community, the better. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to our commission chair, Alan Hale, for wrap up.
Thanks, Rachel. So yeah, this is our wrap. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen today. And kind of our last message here is to please, if you know of a business in Ferndale that has done something, we really want to hear about it. So follow our links, nominate a business, share it with your friends, family, business owners. Feel free to join us on Facebook. So a lot of our communication for the Ferndale Accessibility and Inclusion Advisory Commission is done through our Facebook page. So luckily we've been able to grow quite a bit, I think, with a lot of digital communication taking the stage this year. So we've got about 140 members, and we're always looking for new perspectives. And then stay tuned. We are working with the Ferndale DDA, and we're hoping to have a few more kind of examples of what we're looking for that they'll help us share. And then I really want to give a really big thanks to Marianne Wessels and the Ferndale Arts and Cultural Commission for all the time and creativity and effort they spent in helping us create the Art for Our award. Which was a labor of love and a lot of back and forth between our two commissions. So it was great to build new allies within the city, and it was a lot of fun to work on the design for this. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for your presentation and the important work that you're doing on behalf of our city to make our place more accessible.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here. All right, moving on to presentations. Next on the agenda is 5D, which is the presentation of the fiscal year 2020 financial statements at the conclusion of the City of Ferndale audit. And our city manager will lead that conversation.
Thank you, Mayor. Kyle, could you promote Cheryl if she's not there? And we're looking for Aaron Stevens if he's not promoted already.
I'm here.
We've got both.
Oh.
Aaron's right there.
Sorry, your face is floating. I missed it. All right. Our finance director, Cheryl Stubblefield, would actually introduce the annual audit.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think most of you already know Aaron. This is Aaron Stevens. He is the partner of the Manor, and you have to say the other part of it for me, Aaron.
Asterison.
Yeah, that place. They do our annual audit, and Aaron is here to do the presentation tonight. So take it away, Aaron.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share my screen so you can see the PowerPoint presentation that I put together. Okay. First off, I'd like to thank the city administration and staff for their courtesy, cooperation, and assistance. Especially Cheryl and Candice. It was definitely a collaborative effort this year more than most, being that the pandemic certainly created some unique challenges for us to perform the audit. But we got through it, and we'll be filing the audit with the Department of Treasury before the extended deadline of January 31st. What I plan to do is highlight what I think are the key areas as I've done in the past. But if you have questions, feel free to stop me at any time and we can go through those. I always like to start out with the purpose or objective of an audit is to express opinions as to whether your financial statements are fairly presented. The purpose of an audit is not to detect fraud or give you an opinion on your internal controls. And that is because fraud detection, deterrence, and prevention, as well as sound internal controls, are management responsibilities. Now, if we find fraud, we certainly have a responsibility to communicate that to you. If we have recommendations on how to improve your internal control, we will let you know about those as well, and that would be in the form of a written letter, written report. But that's really a byproduct of the audit itself. The independent auditor's report is presented on pages 1 through 3 of the report on the financial statements, and I've included a few paragraphs here in the PowerPoint presentation, again, just to highlight what I think are the key areas. In the second paragraph on page 1, we highlight the fact that the financial statements are the responsibility of management. So not only is management responsible for fraud detection, deterrence, and prevention, they're also responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. And that does include the internal control over that preparation and fair presentation. In the third paragraph on page 1, we highlight our responsibility, and as I already mentioned, our responsibility as the auditors is to express opinions on the financial statements as to whether they're fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with GAAP, or generally accepted accounting principles. And then we express our opinions in the second paragraph on page 2. And that paragraph starts out, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. That is the important phrase, that present fairly in all material respects refers to what we refer to as an unmodified opinion. And that is the highest level of assurance that we can provide. To put that into some perspective for you, there are 3 types of opinions we could express. You have the unmodified opinion, that is what you want to see as a council. We could have expressed a qualified opinion, and that might read something like, except for capital assets, the financial statements referred to above present fairly. We could have expressed an adverse opinion. The financial statements do not present fairly the financial position of the city of Ferndale. The only other alternative that we have when it comes to performing an audit would be to disclaim an opinion altogether. We did not audit the city's financial statements. So obviously you don't want any of those other 3 options. You have the highest level of assurance that we can provide for a set of financial statements in that unmodified opinion. The government-wide financial statements are presented on pages 11 and 12 of the report. And government-wide financial statements are prepared on the full accrual basis of accounting. And with that, they primarily have a long-term perspective. The other unique thing about the government-wide financial statements is that they're prepared once a year. The only time you see this level of reporting is in the audited financial statements. And because the financial statements don't really lend themselves to a PowerPoint presentation, I've included some charts and graphs and other analysis here in the PowerPoint to help facilitate the presentation. The government-wide statement of net position is a snapshot as of June 30th, 2020 of your assets, deferred outflows, liabilities, deferred inflows, and then the resulting net position. And that the government-wide financial statements are broken down into 2 activity types. You have governmental activities and business type activities. And there are a couple of financial performance indicators that I like to look at. One being the current ratio. And what that tells you is, or it asks the question, is the city able to meet its obligations in the near term? And so your governmental activities have a current ratio of 3.3. You can cover your current obligations more than 3 times over with your current financial resources as of June 30th. For the business type activities, your current ratio is 2.2. So again, you're able to meet your obligations in the near term. When we look at kind of a longer term piece of this, we look at the unrestricted net position and compare that with your annual expenses on the full accrual basis again. So what that, that says, how long can the city operate at its current level before needing to generate additional revenue? And for the governmental activities, it's, as of June 30th, a negative number. And it's negative as a direct result of the recognition of the other post-employment benefits liability, as well as your long-term debt. Those are long-term items that bring your unrestricted net position to a negative number. For the business type activities, that calculation of unrestricted net position compared to expenses equals about 44%, which is about 5.25 months of operations. So your business type activities would include the water and sewer fund as well as the parking fund. I'll have more on that in a few slides here, and we'll break that down into some more detail when we talk about the fund level reporting. The statement of activities is presented on page 12. Also full accrual. This is the companion statement to the statement of net position. A little backwards because we start with the expenses in the left-hand column. We read left to right, adding back in your program revenues, and then top to bottom to add in your general revenues. The good news here is that both governmental activities and business type activities improve the net position as a result of the operations for the year ended June 30, 2020. Then we get into the governmental fund financial statements, and governmental fund financial statements are prepared on the modified accrual basis of accounting. And so they have a current financial resources focus. This should be a more familiar presentation for you. This is the level at which your budgets are prepared. The reporting that you get throughout the year is done at the fund level. So again, it should be a more familiar presentation for you. The governmental fund financial statements are on pages 13 and 15 of the financial statement report. And we'll start with the balance sheet. And the balance sheet is, again, a snapshot as of June 30th, a very particular point in time. And here we have the city's governmental fund, assets, liabilities, deferred inflows, and fund balances. I tend to focus on the general fund as the operating fund for the city. And as of June 30th, the total fund balance for the general fund was about $6.9 million. That $6.9 million is broken down into 5 possible classifications. Your general fund actually happens to have all 5 of these. I have non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned portions of fund balance. And each of those, the non-spendable, restricted, committed, and assigned, each of those classifications is an earmarking for particular purposes. Non-spendable fund balance would be something like inventory or prepaids. That money has already been spent, your inventory has already been purchased, you can't spend it again. Restricted fund balance, restrictions come from external parties. So if you received a grant, it's for a particular purpose. If it's for Parks and Rec, it can only be spent on Parks and Rec activities. That would be a restricted fund balance if you have anything left over that was unspent. Committed fund balance commitments are done at the governing body level, and they're done with the highest level of action. So through a board or a council resolution, an ordinance, what have you, you can commit fund balance so that it can't be spent until you do another like action. So you would pass another resolution to be able to free up that money to spend it. And then we have fund balance assignments, and fund balance assignments are a little less formal, if you will, and really just indicate management's intention for future use. So as an example, you can assign fund balance with a budget amendment. If you intend to spend it on something, you have a project, you're going to approve a budget amendment, that fund balance now becomes assigned. But it can be done, you can assign and unassigned money at will. And so collectively, I look at the assigned and unassigned portions of fund balance and call them, refer to them as unrestricted. So if we take that unrestricted fund balance of your general fund, which would include the almost $9,800 of assigned fund balance, plus the $5.7 million of unassigned fund balance, and compare that to your expenditures and other financing uses, which would be your transfers out to other funds. And that's the $22 million are your total expenditures for the general fund, and the $445,000 are the transfers out to other funds. So that unrestricted fund balance represents approximately 25% of your annual expenditures and other financing uses. Now, the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, recommends that you maintain a minimum fund balance in your general fund that is equal to 2 months of normal operations. 2 out of 12 months is approximately 17%, and you're at 25%. So you're in sound financial condition. In addition to that, your own policy, you have a fund balance policy that says that unassigned fund balance should be at a minimum of 12%. And again, you're at 25%, and that does include some of the assigned money as well. So actually, it's even better in comparison to your own policy. So again, sound financial condition for the general fund. The statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This is presented on page 15 of the financial statement report. Sticking with the general fund presentation here, total revenue of about $21 million. Pretty consistent with the 2019 revenue. Revenue decreased about 2% from 19 to 20. Total expenditures, $22.3 million. This was a slight increase over the 2019 fiscal year, but it was less than 1%. It was about a 0.5% increase. The net other financing sources and uses. So here I netted them all together. This would include your transfers in from other funds, transfers out to other funds, the issuance of long-term debt, and the sale of capital assets, netted to about $1.3 million. That was an increase of approximately $461,000 over the 2019 net financing, other financing sources. So as a net of all of those items that you see there, the revenues, expenditures, and other financing sources and uses, your change in fund balance for the year was 0. A 5-year trend here, bar graph that shows you the general fund revenue, expenditures, and total fund balance. Just to give you a visual perspective, and if you just focus on the fund balance bar, the green bar, you can see how consistent and stable your fund balance has been over the term of the 5-year graph here. And your ending fund balance, again, $6,881,000. far as composition of general fund revenue, taxes at 49%, followed by intergovernmental at 17%, and your intergovernmental would be your revenue sharing, primarily your state sales tax. For 2019, your taxes were 48%, and your intergovernmental revenue was 16%. So again, consistent with the composition of your revenue from 19 to 20. Similarly, on the expenditure side, public safety at 52%, general government at 22%, and public works at 15%. Again, consistency is the key. 2019, you were at 55% for public safety. General government was at 23%, and public works at 14%. When we trend out the 5 years of unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of expenditures, you can see that for the last 5 years, you've been between 25 and 30%. Again, the GFOA's recommended minimum is at about 17%, so you well exceeded that over the course of the last 5 years. And your own policy at 12%. In terms of dollars, I have the unrestricted fund balances, the blue line, and then the 17% of each year's expenditures and other financing uses is that brownish red color line. So again, just to give you a visual perspective of the health of the general fund for the city of Ferndale. All right, and then we get to proprietary funds, and proprietary funds are also prepared on the full accrual basis of accounting, like the government-wide financial statements. And so your proprietary funds it's the same information that is presented in the business type activities, only in more detail and a slightly different format. So you have two proprietary funds, again, water and sewer, and the auto parking fund. So we take a look at these in greater detail. First, the water and sewer fund. Again, we get to that snapshot. So for the statement of net position for the water and sewer fund, a snapshot as of June 30th, 2020, your unrestricted net position for the water and sewer fund was $4.2 million in total. Excuse me, that's the unrestricted portion. Your total net position was $25,544,000. But again, that total does consist of the amount that's invested in capital assets, net of related debt. So your water system and your sewer system, those capital assets that are underground, not available for future spending. Then you have an amount that is restricted for pension benefits. You actually have a net pension asset. That money cannot be spent on repairing water mains. That has to be spent on pensions. So that is restricted for a very particular use. And that's about $1.8 million. And then the balance is the unrestricted portion of $4.2 million. And we compare that unrestricted net position to your operating expenses. And here I back out depreciation. Depreciation is a non-cash expense, so I'm trying to get back to a true operating, and what you would need for operations. And that 4.2 million represents approximately 62% of your operating expenses, factoring out depreciation. This is a 5-year trend of your revenues, expenses, and total net position. And as you can see, you added to your net position in 4 of the past 5 years where your revenues have exceeded your expenses. So the last time you actually used net position was in 2016, where expenses were slightly higher than revenue. But keep in mind that green bar, that total net position, does not represent what you have available for future use. But you can compare the unrestricted net position to expenses. And when you do that, you actually see a downward trend for the water and sewer fund. As I said, you ended June 30, 2020 at about 62%. So it started out in 2016, you were at 88%, 87% in 2017, 80% in 2018, 76% in 2019. So a slightly downward trend on the unrestricted net position compared to operating expenses. This bar graph gives you a visual perspective of the components of that total net position. So again, you do see the total net position did fluctuate a little bit, but what you have available for future use is that green portion of this bar graph. And as of June 30, 2020, there's the $4.2 million that you have available for future use. But that sort of begs the question, what should you have? How much is enough unrestricted net position? And when we talk about proprietary funds, we can't use the same logic as we do for a governmental fund like the general fund and say, well, you should have 2 months worth of operations, because that's only part of the story. With a proprietary fund being a full accrual basis of accounting, we can start with the operating expenses and subtracting out depreciation, and that gets you $6.8 million, and then apply a percentage. So here I've used 3 out of 12 months instead of 2 out of 12 months. Just being a business type activity, we tend to want a little more available for operations. So 3/12 of that 6.8 million is the 1,714,000. But then we also have to factor in next year's debt service requirements. So for governmental funds, your principal and interest payments are just recorded as expenditures. It's just an outflow. In a proprietary fund, your principal payment actually reduces a liability, and your interest payment is a non-operating expense. So it's not included in that 6.8 million. So we take a look at what are your next year's debt service requirements, and that's where I take the 1.2 million in principal and 155,000 in interest, and that comes up to the 1,379,000 that you see in the box on the bottom. And then the third component of this this recommendation is really the most subjective, and I use an average here, but you will have capital needs. How much money do you need to spend on your infrastructure, your capital assets in the water and sewer fund? And I say it's subjective because it really depends on the condition of your existing systems. What I've done is I've looked back at the last 5 years worth of audits and averaged that out and came up with an average capital outlay of 1,426,000. That again, it's subjective. We could use a wider range. We could use 10 years. You could use your capital asset management plan, what your capital replacement plan for that third piece or component of this recommended minimum unrestricted net position. For purposes of this presentation, I just used a 5-year average and came up with a 1.4 million. So adding those 3 pieces together, I would recommend that at a minimum you have an unrestricted net position of $4.5 million. And again, as of June 30th, 2020, you're at 4.2. So relatively close. It's you're slightly less than what I'm recommending. But again, a fairly subjective piece of this is that capital assets or capital outlay needs. And I added these slides just today. After an email exchange with Cheryl, I went back and added the parking fund and a similar analysis here that I walked through and added some charts and graphs. So your unrestricted net position for the parking fund is just over $1 million. When comparing that to your operating expenses, factoring out depreciation, you've got about 68%. But the percentage really isn't the number that is what you're looking for. Percentages help. You can look at trends and see how you're doing over the course of time, but you can't really use that the same way we do for the general fund. We don't have a benchmark of 17%. But again, a 5-year graph here. So this, your net position does look extremely high in comparison to the revenues and expenses, especially early on in the graph. But you can see that you added to your total net position in 2016, 17, and 18, where revenues exceeded expenses. And then in 2019 and 2020, your expenses were higher than your revenues, started to dip into that total net position. And here you can see the downward trend of that unrestricted net position compared to your operating expenses. And it's been a downward trend over the past 5 years. Actually, 2019 to 2020, it's maintained at 68%. Now here, breaking down the components of your net position, you don't have any restricted net position in the parking fund like you did in the water and sewer fund, because we don't have the net pension asset here. But you do have that investment in capital, which is not available for use. So when you look at this, even though you added to your total net position in 2017 and 2018, and then used net position in 2019 and 2020, if you just took the unrestricted portion of your total net position, you can see a decrease in every year. in the past 5 years. So again, we come back to this this calculation with the three pieces. Taking the operating expenses of 1.6 million, approximately 3/12 of that gives you about $396,000. The principal and interest, your debt service requirements of $335,000 in principal and $773,000 in interest. And then here, on this one, I took 10 years. I took a 10-year average because your last 2 years for the parking fund have had significant capital outlay, and to just average that out over a 5-year period probably skews that number quite a bit. So I went back a little further, took a 10-year average, and maybe we need to go even further than that, but a 10-year average gives you about $2.1 million in capital outlay, which would then result in a recommended minimum of $3.6 million. And as I said, at June 30th, 2020, you're just over $1 million. So again, very subjective on the capital outlay piece. With all the significant capital outlay that's been done in the last couple of years, maybe you don't need $2 million every year, or on average, maybe that's even lower. Maybe it's only $1 million. I don't know what that number is, but that's where the capital asset management plans would come into play and be useful for you to take a look at that and come up with what your own recommended minimum unrestricted net position should be. All right, as I said, we performed the audit in accordance with government auditing standards, so we do have a report on internal control that is required when we do that. When we perform an audit in accordance with government auditing standards, we have this additional report, pages 87 through 90, and this does include our comments and recommendations. And so we had 3 comments or findings similar to the prior year. We had some material journal entries that related to the pension and the OPEB allocations, as well as in some purchase agreement activity. Bank recs, timeliness, more so than anything, the timeliness of the bank recs, we are suggesting be ramped up a bit. And then the unfavorable budget variances, there was one fund that didn't have a budget, and there were a couple of activities within the general fund that were over the budgeted amounts. Again, very similar to the prior year. And when the final report is issued, it will also include management's corrective action plan to each of these findings. And then I'd like to close with the upcoming accounting standards. Because of the pandemic, the GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, did postpone any new implementation of accounting standards. And so GASB 84 on fiduciary activities was supposed to have been implemented June 30, 2020. They are now allowing for that to be implemented by June 30 of 21. GASB 87 on leases changes the lease accounting, and that is now going to be effective June 30th of 2022. And then the following year, we have subscription-based information technology arrangements, or SBITAs. And what this really amounts to is software licensing. It's very similar to the leases standard. In fact, it's tied to the leases standard in that they will be accounted for in a very similar manner. And that'll be June 30 of 2023. So that's on the horizon. You know, I always refer to that note disclosure that we have in the audit report as the auditor employment section of your financial statements. So I know I went through that very quickly. I do have my copy of the draft financial statements here in front of me. If you have any particular questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Thank you so much for coming here and presenting the audit. Are there any, I'm going to open it up to council. Are there any questions from council on our current audit?
I had just a very quick question. First of all, phenomenal presentation. This really clarified a lot of what we saw within the packet. On those items that you just mentioned, will those also be included within the management's corrective plan? Like, do we have a framework for what we should expect as far as new changes going forward?
Well, so in terms of the findings that we have, that's what you're referring to? The 3 findings?
I guess what I'm referring to is changes that we expect going forward. So for instance, the software as a service subscription agreements, do you have recommendations that you're going to be providing to us as to how we should adjust our accounting to account for those moving forward?
Certainly we do. We offer, every year we have, we call it the Solutions Conference. So our firm puts on an educational, this year it was virtual like everyone else, webinar. And this year we stretched it over 2 days instead of just one. But last year we had an on-site training session for our clients. We're also available at any time to discuss this with you one-on-one, walk you through what needs to be done. In fact, the GASB 84 is probably, that's the one that's going to have to be implemented first. So there's an exercise that you will have to go through as a city to determine how each of those fiduciary activities will be accounted for in going forward. What that's doing, you will no longer have any agency funds, or you will no longer have any agency funds. They will now be referred to as custodial funds. Some of that, what used to be agency activity, will now have to be reported in, to the extent you have it, in a trust fund, fiduciary trust fund. Others, some of it may still be custodial, but you'll actually have a balance sheet and an income statement. They don't call it that, but that's what they are, in effect. So there are changes, and always happy to assist and address any questions there. We do have some resources that we can certainly share with Cheryl and Candice and start you on the path. We're here to help you. That's the bottom line. We will do everything to the standards.
If I may just clarify, those are the trainings that I go to throughout the year. We've been talking about, Aaron, I don't know how long you guys have been talking about GASB 84, but I know we've been talking about it in trainings for like 2.5 years.
Right.
So there's kind of a camaraderie of finance people trying to make sure that as these new things come down, we're all understanding the implementation and implementing them correctly. A lot of firms, like Aaron's firm, puts together some templates that we can walk through that will help us figure out exactly where we fit in that GASB, because a lot of times there's 4 or 5 different scenarios. Imagining, especially for pensions, some people don't have pensions, some people have MERS, some people have their own pensions. So there's a lot of flow charting that goes on to figure out where you're going to fall in those things and what is best for the community that you're serving. So we do, like I said, we've been talking about that GASB 84 for probably 2 years now.
And that really is pretty typical. The GASB will issue the new accounting standards and then give you time to implement. This year was a little odd. I've been doing this a little while now, about 26, 27 years, and I've never seen them defer a statement like this, where they deferred all of them because of the pandemic and said, you got another year to get it done. But I would also caution you that, when we say another year, this is already January. You've got 6 months. You've got to get it done for your audit that's going to be for the year ended June 30 of 2021, for GASB 84 in particular. So it might sound like you got a lot of time. I would get prepared. I would get started on it now. And the lease standard as well. Leases could be a little more involved. You should start to compile your list of leases, not only the ones, the leases where you're the lessor, but also the lessee, because it affects both sides of that transaction. And what it amounts to is that all leases on the full accrual financial statements will end up on the balance sheet. So under current accounting standards, any operating lease you would just expense as you pay it. That's not going to happen anymore. You will now have an intangible asset on your full accrual financial statements as, for example, the right to use the photocopier. You don't own that photocopier, but you own the right to use the photocopier. And then if you have an operating lease, you've got a debt or an obligation that's associated with that. So both sides of that are going to be on your statement of net position after that lease standard is implemented. And then in the following year, very similarly, the software subscriptions. You're going to have another intangible asset that would be recorded on your statement of net position, as well as the related obligation. And that's just a high level summary. Obviously, it's more detailed than that, but
Fun times.
yes.
Fun times.
Well, thank you. Are there any other questions from council on the audit? I just wanted to sort of summarize is that we're still very steady with our financial oversight, and we're a financially well-managed city, and this audit confirms that. And I really appreciate you being here. And I also want to just draw at the beginning of the year, because of our DOT project, we were talking about the auto parking fund, and that City Council requested that the auto parking fund is be included in this audit, and it was. So to show that the fund is being properly managed, as we dealt with the complexities of the pandemic and the financial, I don't know, fourth floor mistake, and that is being, I think, showing that we're on track with the fund, despite the complexities we've had to deal with.
Yes, yep, I agree.
So, okay, if there's no other questions from council, I believe we don't need to make a motion to accept this because it's still a draft. Right? We're accepting this at a later date.
I think what we do is receive and file the final version. If you're not comfortable doing that because this is still in draft, we can just put something on the consent agenda next week. Or whatever your pleasure is.
Through the chair, our recommendation would be to receive and file the FYE 2020 final audit as received by the finance director.
Thank you for that. So we would need a motion from council to receive and file.
I move that we receive and file, file the draft financial statements following the conclusion of the 2020 City of Ferndale audit as submitted by the finance director.
I support.
That was moved by council member Polika and supported by, was that Mikulski that I think I heard?
Yes.
Thank you. And with that, Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember James?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May?
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski?
Yes.
Member Polika?
Yes.
And Mayor Piana?
Yes. Thank you, Aaron, for being with us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again next year.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron?
All right, we are moving on to the last presentation, and it's the presentation of the Holiday Lights Awards by the Ferndale Beautification Commission. And thank you for your patience in getting through the audit presentation. And welcome, Robin. It's great to see you. Happy New Year.
Great to see you all too. Wow, hard to follow a presentation like that. I'm just so happy to be here. Happy New Year to you all. We are off to a great start, I think, with the Beautification Commission, and we look forward to bring some wonderful positive energy to your meetings in the months to come. So if you would allow me to share my screen. All right, so with it being January, and because of the way the dates fall and our meetings go with the commission, we are presenting the actual awards from the holiday lights. Let me get to my next slide and the next one. So with that said, the Southwest winner was 1405 Marie, which is a little small street that doesn't get a whole lot of attention. And so we were happy that we were able to acknowledge Tricia and James Wackery, I believe is the way it's pronounced. Please forgive me for slaughtering your last name. Wackery. They did a lovely job brightening up that section of town. The next award winner is in the Northwest quadrant at 659 Withington. This is a house owned by Carl and Stephanie Grant. And in Carl's words, Stephanie did most of the work. We have a great collection of lights across the front of the home there, traditional colors. We thought it was lovely, and we certainly appreciate you all for doing this. The southeast winner is 597 Silman, and this is Heather Grayson who lives here. You'll notice the houses are slowly building with lights in the presentation. She did a wonderful job with their home, with all of the wonderful figures out front and lights in the shrubbery. Great job, Heather. Thanks so much for your participation in bringing some holiday lights to Ferndale. And finally, the northeast quadrant. This one is 2029 Woodward Heights. And the owner of the house there is named Austin Green. He actually gave us a quote, and I will read his quote. "I did it because it's the one thing that gets me in the holiday spirit, as well as 2020 was a year no one expected. I decided to go bigger and better than I had in previous years. I wanted people to forget how hard 2020 was when they saw my lights. It's almost like they were a child again," which I think is the perfect reason for doing holiday lights. Also, if you'd like to check it out, I believe there's even a video floating around on Facebook of their presentation. So thanks again, Austin, for your hard work. We greatly appreciated your efforts. Moving on to the Night of Light and Hope 2021. If you want to see more photos, go to the hashtag NOLAH2021. We had a wonderful response for, I think, our first doing this particular event. We hope that it will become an annual event. We actually gave out over 250 luminary kits. The Beautification Commission, in conjunction with sponsorship from Candlewick and from Blooms, was able to put this together for everyone on a very short notice. But I think it turned out really, really well. You'll see some of the photos that were posted on social media, children and others decorating the bags with their wishes and thoughts for the upcoming new year. And of course, streets lined with the luminaries. We were really extremely pleased with it. We appreciate everyone taking part in this. And we hope that next season in December, we'll be able to do it bigger and better, and maybe even get some more sponsors in there in addition to us. We would appreciate it also through the year if you would follow the Ferndale Beautification Commission on Facebook, on Instagram. We are looking to fill a couple of positions on the commission. So if you are interested in joining the commission, please do so by applying online at ferndalemi.gov. Again, thanks so much. Have a happy, happy new year, and we'll see you in February.
Thank you very much, Robin.
My pleasure.
Sorry, I gotta sneeze. Sorry. Grapefruit, grapefruit, grapefruit. I don't know if anyone heard that trick before. If you say grapefruit 3 times, it makes your sneeze feelings to go away, right? So I think that worked. We're moving on now to call the audience. For 30 minutes, we're going to have residents say their public comments, and we're going to ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes, and you can speak about anything on or off the agenda. And our city manager is going to take comments by hand raisers through Zoom, and I think Kyle has a really nice slide to show about how to do that. And then he will go through folks on the phone. So you can call in at the number at 888-788-0099. Or if you're on Zoom, raise your hand. So at this point, Kyle, I'll turn it over to you and welcome people into the Zoom public comment period.
Thank you, Mayor. So if you'd like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand now. All right, first up, Mike Flores. Go ahead, Mike.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome. Happy New Year.
Yes. Buenas noches. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Augusto Mike Flores on Whittington Street. First, I want to wish all of you Feliz Año Nuevo and a Happy New Year. Unfortunately, as a nation, we have not started off, we are not off to a good start. The insurrection last week has left many horrified and asking, how is this possible in my America? Personally, I'm left ashamed that we as a nation allowed this. I'm further left terrified that fellow Michiganders participated as Confederate flags were waved down the halls of democracy. I felt powerless over the last couple of days. As the individual stories begin to surface on what motivated the insurgents, a common thread of fear of minorities quickly emerges. Why is there so much fear? I personally believe, in my humble opinion, that it's because we haven't normalized minorities beyond athletic stars and movie stars. We have not normalized minorities as titans of industries, power brokers of policy. We have not normalized minorities as plain Americans doing their best to be Americans. We have not normalized minorities as true equals. In Ferndale, we are lucky. We live in a bubble that, yes, needs some work, but it's a pretty damn accepting bubble in the region. I know me speaking is sometimes met with sighs and shoulder shrugs, but now more than ever, I think it's important for me to speak. I want to help do my part normalizing minorities being active in local government beyond the accepting borders of Ferndale. I want to help normalize the use of ethnic names for the public record. I want to help normalize minorities asking tough questions of local officials beyond our safe bubble. I want to help normalize minorities being good Michigan and American citizens. Thank you for allowing me to be able to do this as a citizen and an engaged member here in the city of Ferndale, Michigan. And with that sentiment, I will continue with my two brief comments related to tonight's agenda. As it relates to the 2020 audit, can Council please briefly speak on the discrepancies identified on page 87 and 90? It seems that a few of the items are repeat offenders from previous audits. What is being done to avoid repeating the same discrepancies in the future? In addition, these questions came up based on what the auditor had mentioned today. In regards to the auto fund, it seems that he's recommending a fund balance of 3.6 million, potentially 2 million. It seems that our current fund balance is only $1 million, and I'm not sure if that quite encompasses all of the change orders that have been outlined this year. So Council can briefly speak on that. And then as it relates to the settlement agreement, I look forward to understanding the financial impact, if any, to the city and its residents. As always, thank you for your time, your comments, and your guidance.
Thank you, Mike.
Anybody else want to speak, please raise your hand at this time. Oh, yep. And next is Joy Wells.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep. Welcome, Joy. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Joy Wells, Executive Director of the Ferndale Area Chamber of Commerce. I am just stopping in to say hello, Happy New Year. Exciting first meeting of this new year. While I do not have anything to report at this time, it's important that I do in fact tell you to stay tuned because there's lots of exciting things coming up in the new year.
All right, cool. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. It's good to hear your voice.
Anybody else have anything to contribute or say? Please raise your hand at this time. I don't see any others. Hand raised. Call-ons at this time.
Okay, I'm going to conclude the call to audience for the first meeting of the year. So we are going to move on to the consent agenda. I will read all the items, and for those who have joined mid-meeting, the A has been removed at the beginning of the approval of the agenda. So is 7A, adoption of resolution recognizing January as Human Trafficking. 7B, adoption of the resolution to accept the policy of the property. City manager. 7C, approve the report of public city manager. 7D, approve the interlocal agreement for the CARES Act distribution. Approval by the city manager's office and subject to review by the council finance committee.
To approve the as presented.
I heard first. Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
May? Yes. Councilmember Bukowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Palka?
Yes.
Councilmember James?
Yeah.
And Mayor Piana?
Yes. That concludes our agenda items, and I'm moving on to the regular agenda. There's only one this evening, 8A, to consider a settlement agreement in connection with versus City of Ferndale, which is the water settlement from the 2014 flood suit.
Thank you, Mayor. I will introduce this item. Earlier this evening, City Council met in closed session to receive a settlement agreement as presented by our legal counsel on the settlement to ongoing litigation that involves a class action lawsuit with up to 12 entities, including the City of Ferndale. In terms of the settlement agreement were discussed during the closed session, and because of litigation, I did not disclose the final terms as part of that settlement agreement. The court is expected to take this, all settlement agreements on January 20th. After the court approves of any settlement agreement, it would be appropriate to provide additional information at that time. So the motion tonight presented before City Council is to accept the settlement terms as presented during closed session.
Thank you. Are there any comments from council?
Madam Mayor, I just want to chime in to disclose that I appeared at 6 o'clock today for the launch of the closed session and recused myself before council went into closed session for discussion. Because my understanding that I'm a potential claimant in this action, as I did have extensive flooding in August of 2014. So I have not participated in any of the deliberations on this matter and will not chime in on any further discussion of the matter unless anyone has any questions about my recusal or anything.
Through the chair.
Yes.
In regards to Councilwoman James' statement, just for clarity, you are part of or potentially part of the class action lawsuit because of your insurance company, not as a personal choice as yourself. That's my understanding.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case. All I know is that within some period of time after the event itself, believe, I mean, to be, I submitted claim forms to my insurance company, to, at the time, what's the agency fund, FEMA. You know, I had extensive damage, so I sought whatever relief was possible. I don't know which of that triggered potential claim here. I don't know if it's my insurance company or something that I filled out.
Sure. Well, I know from my point of view, I was also impacted by that, and through my investigation, I have AAA insurance, and well, I had AAA insurance at the time, and my understanding was AAA decided they would not be part of that group.
I think there's a lot of complexities with this. Every homeowner makes their own choice based off of what was presented to them at the time, and I appreciate Councilman's up front and being clear herself from the deliberations that happened over 3 years before she was council. So I just appreciate this. I heard you try to make a comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry, through the chair, the one comment that I neglected to articulate that I'm comfortable disclosing is that, to clarify, all costs related to the agreement are going to be assigned to the water function of the water utility.
Yes.
That's disclosed in the packet.
Yes, it's part of the fee for service of the water fund, right?
Correct.
So,
Here, Mayor, there is an proposal in council's
yes.
material.
If someone other than Councilwoman James can go into that and provide a motion.
Sure. So I move to approve the settlement agreement in connection with Jones et al. Versus City of Ferndale as recommended and presented by its attorneys, and to authorize the city's attorneys to sign on behalf of the city any necessary documents or appropriations to finalize the settlement.
Moved by Polika, supported by Polsky. My final comment is and reiterate again, we are still in the lawsuit. This is part of coming to the conclusion with an agreement, and so we are sharing the settlement part tonight because we are part of 12 other cities, and
also it has to still be approved by the court.
It has to be approved by the court. So once this lawsuit is completed, we will be sharing those costs when it's really able to do so. All right, Madam Clerk, can we have a vote, please?
Councilmember Polika?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May?
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski?
Yes.
And Mayor Piana?
Yes. Thank you, Joe, for this item, and Dan Christ for your guidance throughout this settlement conversations. All right, we're moving on to the final agenda item on the agenda is call to audience, and hand it over to our city manager, Joe, to go through the department updates.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We will begin this evening with an update from our DDA Director, Lena Stevens.
Good evening, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Here you are. Yep.
Lovely. Okay. Good evening. Happy New Year to everyone. It's lovely to see your faces again. I wanted to just briefly provide an update on the restaurant relief program coming from Oakland County. Although we don't have all the details, I wanted you to hear where we are now, so that when inevitably we get a ton of information very quickly, you'll be familiar with the project. If you recall, in December, the county announced a restaurant relief program that was designed to specifically target restaurants because they were suffering during the pause to save lives. And also, now that the weather has turned colder, many businesses obviously can't provide as much outdoor seating as they were able to in warmer months. The way that is taking form is funding that's actually coming to the city of Ferndale, and in our case, the DDA is helping to target that money, helping to work on it. So this week, the first phase was what they're calling rapid deployment, where Summer Really, my engagement manager at the DDA, has been working to deploy heaters, a few greenhouses, and some cleaning materials, electrostatic, hand spraying, cleaning equipment, to about 10 businesses. And they were identified through some outreach that we had done, and honestly, it was a very fast process. The second phase is that we will be getting an actual cash infusion that will come from Oakland County to the city of Ferndale for us to make grants or some in other forms support outdoor dining for the restaurants. We don't have a lot of information about how much money that's going to be or how we're going to target it. The conversation so far has been some sort of mini grant or reimbursement type program. So more information should be coming on that very, very shortly. And again, I just wanted you to kind of be aware of it in case you are asked any questions, or when we do get information, you'll have at least a primer on the subject.
Thank you, Lena. Next up, we have our Director of Human Resources, Dan Jacey.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So the City of Ferndale has been doing a lot of hiring lately. With each position we hire, we hold a virtual open house to let qualified applicants know the wages and benefits for their position. Additionally, more importantly, we educate them on the city's culture and why Ferndale is a great place to work. We go over our anti-racism initiative and introduce them to our core values, which we call the 4 I's: inspired, integrity, innovative, and inclusive. Feedback from the participants on this process is very positive. They share with us that they were initially apprehensive about what an open house even was, but they now have a much better idea of what to expect if they were to be hired. We've also been hearing feedback that candidates really want to work for Ferndale because at least one of those 4 I's resonated strongly with them. For example, several attendees from our last open house told us that they were drawn to Ferndale because of its reputation for diversity, and our discussion on inclusiveness reinforced their desire to work with us. This feedback is a testament to what our elected officials and staff are doing on a daily basis to embrace our culture and live our core values, making Ferndale a desirable place to work. We do still have a few positions open, and I encourage anyone looking for a career change to visit our job page on the city website frequently. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Next, we have some positive comments coming from Parks and Recreation. Emmanuel Johnson, give us some news about the spring.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a quick update from Parks and Recreation. We wanted to let Council and the community know that our youth soccer program is open for registration now. The spots are filling up rather quickly. We've opened up 4 different leagues across 4 different age groups, ranging from U6 to U10. I'm sorry, to U12. So the one with the most openings as of right now is U12, which has 35 available openings. Everything else is 11 or fewer. So anybody that's looking to participate in that program should go ahead and register as soon as possible. As part of this league, we do have a number of different COVID protocols in place in order to try to maintain everyone's health and safety that's participating in this program. For more information on that, you can contact us via Facebook for more specifics about if you have questions about what some of those procedures are and how we'll be implementing them to keep everybody safe. And that'll be it.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Next, we have the Assistant City Manager, Kyle Paulette, with an update or follow-up update on Martin Road Park that was discussed at the previous December meeting. Kyle?
Thank you, Joe. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So at our final meeting of the 2020 year in December, we had a presentation and discussion of the rejection of the bids for construction on Martin Road Park splash pad. And after that, staff regrouped over the holiday to come up with the recommendation that we would recommend postponing a rebid of that project until fall of 2021 for several reasons, which was outlined in a memo sent to council last week. For our residents' information, some of the contributing reasons included staff capacity, especially in our DPW and Parks and Rec, as there are some heavy impacts of COVID on those departments. Their capacity is better served rebuilding and working through reinforcing core services. The timeline of the rebid, if we were to rebid after this council meeting, would be fairly tight and wouldn't really leave a whole lot of room for innovation, or if there were any issues in construction to get the work done before winterization. We also would appreciate the opportunity to improve the bid based on the experience that we had in this previous round. And then finally, the whole point of this amenity is for resident use. And if we were to rebid after this council meeting, use would be extremely limited, and the 2021 season, which is only about 5 good months in our great state of Michigan, and therefore we would get more use if we were to postpone the bid. So with that recommendation, just wanted to follow up, let residents know of our recommendation to council to move forward on Martin Road.
Thank you, Kyle. Next, we have the Director of Community and Economic Development, Jordan Torty, with an update on Ferndale Moves.
Thank you, Joe. Mayor, council, members of the public, good evening. Just a quick update for those that have been following along with Ferndale Moves, which is the mobility plan for the city. We had a great meeting on December 9th, just before the end of the year. We have another important community meeting coming up on January 27th. If you go to ferndalemoves.com, you'll be able to see a link to the Zoom link and slides from December 9th if you missed it. This meeting is for Woodward Moves. It's focused on the studies relating to Woodward in looking at expanding sidewalks, improving pedestrian experience and safety, and a whole host of other things that were covered in a starting fashion on December 9th. So if you go to ferndalemoves.com and you scroll down, you can see that button on the left-hand side, and it'll give you all the information about how to participate, as well as any of the initial details if you missed that first meeting. Additionally, right next to that button, there's a web map that we've created. It's an interactive map where you can drop your suggestions on mobility in the city generally. If you click that button for the web map, we're taking another round of comments. We're keeping that open until January 15th. There's different resources on how to use the map. It explains what the map is and how to drop your comments in. But if all else fails, if you email us at ced@ferndalemI.gov, you can just send us your comments. And if you can't figure out how to put it on the map, we will do it for you. The important thing is we want to collect your input on the future of mobility in Ferndale, and those are two really exciting opportunities to do it. So just check out again ferndalemoves.com, and you'll see those two buttons if you scroll down. Engage and reach out to us if you have questions.
Thank you, Jordan. I attempted to share my screen to help your point out. I hope that worked. And finally, I will provide just the final update from the, oh, actually, I'm sorry, there's one more. DPW Deputy Director Dan Antosik will give an update on some upcoming infrastructure bids.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Happy New Year to everyone. Few quick updates. We do have some bids out for advertisement right now. The first one, which we're hoping to bring a recommendation forward to City Council the end of this month, would be the bid that is out for lead service line replacement and verifications as part of the drinking water revolving loan fund process that we're currently going through. In addition to, before we know it, we will be in the full swing of construction season. So water main, 2021 water main replacement program is out for bid right now. In addition to 2021 local road resurfacing program is also out for bid. So you will be seeing recommendations from us, likely second meeting in February to award those contracts. And then before you know it, back to construction season, spring, summer, and more than a couple days a week of sunshine. So looking forward to that. And then we are closed. The offices are closed on Monday, the 18th, but sanitation services will remain on the normal schedule. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Dan. And I will conclude the staff updates with just a couple brief announcements. As Dan alluded to, City Hall services will be closed. The building actually is currently closed, but our services will be closed in observance of MLK Day on Monday, January 18th. So that's just a note. As Dan said, there's no disruption to your sanitation services. But if you do call City Hall, an operator will not be attending on that day. A reminder, just a heads up, we just finished the mid-year budget adjustment, and now we're moving right into the fiscal 2022 budget process. So staff in February are reserved for internal budget discussions and budget hearings between different departments. And we will work with City Council on addressing the annual March City Council budget work and how that will be facilitated in the current state. And then April, of course, is there's two budget hearings. The first budget hearing is at the first City Council meeting. We will present the draft budget for review publicly. And then the final meeting per charter will be the budget adopted by City Council, and that's the final meeting in April. So we will either internally or externally be experiencing the budget process for the next 3 to 4 months. And my final update is just a general update on City Hall closed for the month of January due to the current state of COVID-19. We do anticipate a tentative reopening on February 1st of City Hall. Our goal would be to make sure that we are available to provide services for the winter tax season, which tax bills are due in mid-February. With that, that is our update. I will have a more detailed information for you during the January 25th meeting. We make decisions at this point based on the data. So sorry about the cat.
It's very cute. All right, thank you for the updates and thank you to staff. We're going to now move on to call to council with council members, and I am going to start with Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually am just going to make a comment about the incidents that happened at the Capitol earlier this past week. And I just could not state it better than was stated during a call to audience. However, I will state that it was an act that was just so horrifying to me because it was just this attack on what I consider to be kind of the sacred place, sacred building where our legislatures do their jobs in order to work on our behalf. And the fact that they had to be whisked away out of their chambers and to a place of safety because this building was just really under attack by domestic terrorists is just horrifying to me. And I just am so glad that our legislators were safe. They were able to do their job, that there's a new administrative coming in, and that we are, hopefully we will work together and just really find ways to work together and just cease these acts of violence and just the ignorance. It was just horrible for me to see. I can't get it out of my mind, and it's something that I hope that we never have to witness again, myself or my children. But it was just a I just want to express how saddened and disappointed I was to see something like that, and how it affected how individuals feel as far as going to their work day to day, and for something like this to happen. So individuals who perished in this tragic attack, I pray for their families, and I pray for civility in the future.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll move on to Councilwoman Kat Bruner James.
First, I just want to make a couple of quick comments about sort of where we are at in the COVID crisis. If I understand it correctly, I think within the last week we hit a peak of most deaths in a single day nationwide. That didn't get a ton of attention given what's been going on in the last week nationally. So I want to mention it here and now just as a reminder that this is something that's still incredibly important. And it's most important, you know, here locally, where we have the highest chance of interacting with one another, seeing each other in the grocery store and wherever else people are going. I know a lot of people do have to go to work and school and other things. My husband went back to school today. And I'm super, super excited because just a few minutes before our council meeting started, he was able to get an appointment to get vaccinated in Wayne County. He teaches in Wayne County. And I am patiently yet eagerly awaiting my own access to the vaccine. But even though the vaccine rollout is beginning, it's happening slowly, so we still need to be vigilant and cautious, and even after we're vaccinated individually, we still need to be careful about stemming the tide of transmission by distancing, hand washing, wearing your mask, and so forth, basically until further notice. So let's not let our guard down. I'm sure it's of no surprise that I want to make a few comments about the insurrection at the Capitol last week. I think part of what makes it so distressing is because of the attack and attempt to undermine the democratic process. I know that in this community, we hold our clerk and election workers in the highest esteem. And it is a shame that false information has engendered this rumor, this lie, this untruth that the election process was compromised. It is astounding how many people are relying on absolute falsehood to attempt to undermine our democratic process and impose their will by violence and force. I think it's especially important that everyone be vigilant about sticking to facts and credible sources. Even if you think something is kind of funny, kind of interesting, kind of whatever, we absolutely have to be committed to not sharing and perpetuating false information. And there are plenty of resources to help us tell the difference between false information and disinformation. We have incredible library staff in this community who have done podcasts on the topic, internet posts on the topic, media bias charts, and so forth. I strongly urge everyone to look into those resources and utilize the tools to help really tell the difference between something that's false and something that's true. And, you know, violence oftentimes starts with rhetoric. And violent rhetoric, dehumanizing rhetoric, and white supremacy are absolutely rampant right now, and a direct cause of what happened last week. And all of us need to stand up as individuals against it. And again, sometimes unkind, dehumanizing words can feel kind of cathartic, kind of fun in the moment, or what have you. People, especially on social media, do not show their best selves and say things and do things and share things that they wouldn't say to a person who they're facing. And I really encourage all of us to not perpetuate those things, and have tough conversations with people that we know who do. And I also just want to acknowledge that I know a lot of people are having very strong emotional reactions to what's happening, myself included. Anyone who has been victimized or impacted by violence may be having an especially strong reaction this week. And I hope that people know that they're not alone in that. And I hope that we can find ways to heal together moving forward. Because I think this isn't quite over yet. There are reports of plans for future actions that frankly I just don't have a lot of faith are going to remain civil and peaceful. And I think that we all need to do our best both to lead by example, be kind to our neighbors, and be encouraging of people who maybe they've got strong feelings, maybe they're not happy about the policies of the incoming administration, but that those feelings cannot and must not be played out in use of force and violence and undermining democracy. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. Moving on to Councilman Pollica.
Thank you, Mayor. All I have is in regards to the events at the Capitol this past week. I agree with everything that everyone has shared about the events, and I would just add that these feelings, ideas, beliefs, they weren't created in the last 4 to 5 years. And unfortunately, they're not going to be going away in the next 4 to 5 years. This sadly is something that we're going to have to learn to live with people who have different beliefs and ideas, and somehow learn to bring them along. It's very scary to think that we live in this world, because I actually never thought that we would be in this situation, that we would have experienced the things that happened. but because it is so extreme, in my mind, I just can't see it. It's something that is going to quell, over the next 6 months, a year, 2 years. We really have to work to bring these people into the fold of America, because in my mind, they are on the fringe. And that's scary. That's really, really scary. So that's all I have to share.
Thank you, Councilman. And Councilman Mikulski.
Okay, I will start with a couple general updates. Number one, I wanted to echo the sentiment of the chair, Robin Yelverton from the Beautification Commission. We are desperately in need of new members for the Beautification Commission, and I wanted to start by reading the language associated with the commission and the commission's mission, so that people understand that the commission is not just a body that is here to judge houses as beautiful or lights. It really is empowered and charged with so much more than that. So with that said, here are some of the following duties. Number one, to study, conceive, formulate, promulgate, and develop plans for the beautification of streets, highways, alleys, parks, playgrounds, yards, lots, and buildings. Number two, to study, investigate, and develop plans for improving the health, sanitation, safety, and cleanliness of the city. Number three, to foster the prevention of fires, diseases, and other public hazards. 4, to encourage and recommend the placing, planting, and preservation of trees, flowers, plants, shrubbery, and other objects of ornamentation in the city. 5, to collect, study, and evaluate information on community improvements and to make recommendations thereon. 6, to sponsor, plan, promote, coordinate, and carry out campaign activities for the restoration, preservation, and enhancement of the beauty of the city. And finally, 7, to otherwise promote public interest in the general improvement of the appearance of said city. With all of that said, again, you can see that there's so much more than just a standard beautification commission that is judging homes and judging businesses. I encourage people who want to get involved with the city in some capacity to reach out to both their Facebook page as well as look on the city website for the boards and commissions application form so that you can apply and be considered for an appointment to that beautification commission. My second item is I had a number of residents reaching out about high water bills again. And I wanted to make sure that people are aware that we do have the Water Smart portal up. It is live and it is hugely helpful. It will allow you to see all of your water usage on an ongoing active basis. So you can set up alerts. You can check your water usage. For instance, when I do, 5 loads of laundry in a day, that's something that will actually come to my phone. It'll let me know that I'm using more than average. And it's providing me that opportunity to make sure that there's not a leak, there's no sort of issue that I need to address. And if people want to go to that site, the easiest way to go to it, and I'm just going to pull up the URL real quick. I, in the past, have typed in ferndalemi.watersmart.com. I've been told that sometimes that may not work and that you need to add a /index.php to the end. I would say try the first one. If it doesn't work, you can always try the second one, and you can always look at the city website to find that link. I can't remember what page it's on, but I will be sharing that link on my City Council web Facebook page. My third item tonight, since I have a laundry list here, is for anybody experiencing issues where they may not be able to afford food or they may need food assistance. There is a pickup tomorrow in Ferndale from Forgotten Harvest. If you go to forgottenharvest.org/COVID-19, you'll see various distribution points all throughout the week. Tomorrow's distribution point in Ferndale is at Second New Hope, I should say, at 212 Beth Lawn. And that pickup is from 9 a.m. to noon. And again, the URL there is forgottenharvest.org/COVID-19. And there are pickups throughout the week. It looks like they've listed it through January 15th. And fourth item tonight, since there was such a massive security breach on a social media platform called Parler over the weekend, I wanted to make sure that anybody who has ever been on that website, or if you know somebody who's been on that website, please reach out to them, let them know that there was, I guess it's probably not wise to call it a hack, but because there were security issues on that site, individuals were able to scrape information, and they have taken personal identifying information, including the front and back of your license if you are a verified Parler user. Please reach out to those people in your life, or if you are one of those people, I would recommend that you look into a service such as LifeLock, or just simply Google search anything for identity theft protection services, and look at any one of those services to make sure that your information is locked down. And finally, I echo everyone's sentiment on the issues at the Capitol. It was horrifying. It was unsurprising, given the rhetoric that we've heard for the past 4+ years. The only thing that I can add to this conversation is that now is the time of year that we usually see seasonal spikes in mental health issues in general, and we're seeing those in addition to issues with anxiety and depression that are spiking in January. And we see the seasonality anywhere from December through March. If you are experiencing anxiety, depression, basically any sort of concern, please know that there are crisis counseling centers out there, and there is a 24-hour helpline through Common Ground that is hugely helpful. The phone number is 800-231-1127. That phone number again is 800-231-1127. It is a 24-hour service, and they are very experienced with crisis counseling. They will be able to recommend you or refer you to other local counseling centers if that's something that you need. And that is all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to start off by saying I really appreciate Council's comments on what's happening at the national level. Like all of you, it has affected me deeply, and talking with my family and friends, it's a constant conversation, particularly as our federal government starts to take action to create accountability and hold people accountable with their behavior. Not only the insurrection folks, but also our elected leaders who took oaths of office to stand up for our Constitution and tell people to be honest about what they're doing as an elected official and what is the truth. And I am very thankful for our elected body for upholding what it means to be a public servant, and grateful for the truth and honesty that you lead every day. And I'm thankful for our community who I've heard from residents who have concerned about us as a body, that we are safe and protected as these incidences going forward at the national level and even our state capitol, that they have expressed concern about our own bodily safety as local elected. So thank you for expressing your concern to me as in relation to what's going on at the national level. We are a highly polarized country, the most polarized since the Civil War, and it is no doubt that a lot of our racist past and the structural racism that we're grappling with as a country is at the forefront of the discussions of who we want to be as a country, of what our ideal is and versus what reality is. And as our country and our elected leaders at the federal level navigate the insurrectionists and the incitements, and maybe they can't address the media trends of uplifting people who lie and misinform about what the truth is about the safety of our elections. We can begin to self-correct as a nation onto a path of more honesty, truthfulness from our electeds at that level to the people that they serve about what we need to do to heal as a country and what is real and what is not real. I am hoping for a very safe transition, presidential transition over the January 20th. As we all read the news, it appears that more violent acts are being planned. Whether they can be prevented and not happen, I hope that comes to be. But I want you to know that whatever happens, I am for accountability, holding people accountable, because our residents hold us accountable. And I expect that is my duty as a citizen to hold my elected officials accountable above us and others who step up to serve, whether it's our district or someone else's district. That is the duty of an elected official, to do the right thing on behalf of their people. And I'm hoping that there's course corrections coming that lead us down a stronger path of being honest. So, and that we as a nation can begin to mend the polarization that has created a huge rift in beliefs of who we are and what we should be doing. In the meantime, I don't support insurrectionists. I support addressing our structural racism, which is why we created an anti-racism declaration, and we're committed here at the local level and doing whatever we can to uphold democracy here on behalf of our citizens. So, but we need our republic to do it at the federal level as well. So with that, that's all I have tonight, and I'm open to conversation, whatever you believe politically. I'm open to hear you and listen to you. We may vastly disagree, but your opinion matters to me. And I hope to have meaningful conversation with anybody who wants to talk about what's going on. I'm open. All right, with that, everybody, it's 9:12. I'm concluding our first city council meeting of the year, and we will see you in 2 weeks at our second meeting. Take care, everybody. Be safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, social distance, and until the next time, friends.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, everyone.